Hi guys, this is Melinda with the blog eatingbuckets.com. It's Friday. I'm just taking a little coffee break out in my writing studio, and it occurred to me that I wanted to take a few minutes to just talk with you about something that's been running through my mind lately, in the possibility that it might resonate with you, or you might feel inspired to share something that feels similar for you that you might be going through. But every time I come out to this particular space, this writing studio space, I am reminded in a very tangible way of how much I'm living the life that I have always wanted. It is this particular space. It's this 1901 root cellar shed that my husband redid for me with hand hewn shiplap and pounded in all the nails himself. We had some help with a contractor who did a really beautiful job of putting in these windows. I'm able to look out and see the chickens and the flowers, and then windows over on this side were added in. And the reason I say this is because I feel like the voice that we are not enough, or we need to do more, or we're not worthy, or we don't have anything interesting to offer or say, is one that marches through most people's heads almost all day long. It's a self-centeredness or a self-focusedness that is what drives us forward. It's what makes us improve. But it can also be paralyzing, and it can stand in the way of your greatest offering. And for me, that's writing. I have wanted to be a writer since I was very young. Pretty much as soon as I learned that there were such things as words that could be written down, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. It was the easiest form of expression for me, and it was often something that I loved to do while outside. I began writing little poems about nature while I was sitting on the island, this same island, when I was growing up. And nature still continues to feed me and spark me. And yet, I find life is incredibly busy. Largely the things that we have layered into our lives together, have kept me incredibly busy. Planting food, tending the garden, although not always that well. It's a very weedy space at the moment. Cooking, canning, preserving, making everything from scratch. Our kids have to be gluten-free, and so that requires a specific kind of baking that I think I've gotten down. I make all our own bread. We have chickens that lay our eggs. I gather most of our food and cook it all day long. And we have orchards. The apples are now ripe and ripening. And I think we have 20 trees that I need to go gather all those apples and pears from. Peel, slice, chop, freeze, can, dehydrate, and bake and make applesauce. It's a constant, real push to get through apple season here. And that's what I wanted. This is the life that we wanted and that we are intoxicated by still and happy living. I sometimes find that perhaps I use my busyness as an excuse to not get down to the real work, which is the stuff that I fear the most. It is meeting myself on the page and dealing with my own demons, my own insecurities, my own struggles to get it right, my own form of perfectionism and imposter syndrome, and all of the things, all the inner demons and the inner editor that keeps saying, no, that's not quite right, or nobody's going to want to read that, or that's not interesting enough. and it stands in the way. And the quickest way for me to break out of that is quite literally to write a sentence. I took a long break from my blog this summer for a whole bunch of reasons that I don't have to go into here. Just I needed a break, and really focused on being with the kids and being present with them throughout the summer, and just kind of kept my updates going on Instagram and Facebook in sort of these really small, compressed, recipes, updates, photos, and that's been really fun. I actually think that that is a cool form of communication that it's good for me to practice, other than trying to feel like I have to do everything, in this very specific kind of, get down to business and write a blog post or get down to business and write an essay, or get down to business and write that novel that I've always wanted to write. I have a couple drafts of a novel that I wrote, let's see, I guess it would be 9 years ago. I wrote it while I was pregnant with our son. I wrote it in the early morning hours while our daughter was still sleeping. And I had, I think, 4 hours of babysitting a week, and I would kind of rush over to a bookstore and sit down and write. And then once I got it going, it had its own sort of life. It called me. The work called me, and I think what I'm craving right now is a story to tell that will so pull me in and so sort of compel me to be present with that work, that I will no longer be so tied up in my own fear. And so I wanted to offer that to you today, even though it's a long wandering video. I doubt that very many of you have even gotten this far, but if you have, thank you for taking the time. We all have something that we want to do. We all have a gift that we want to work toward, or a calling that we want to meet, or work that maybe we're so afraid of, but it's the work that we really need to focus on in order to be our best self. And so when I first moved into this writing studio, kind of the blessing that I gave it was this quote that I hang up here on this artist palette that my husband worked with years ago, and it is from a Leonard Cohen song, and perhaps it will speak to you too. The birds they sang at the break of day, start again, I heard them say. Don't dwell on what has passed away, or what is yet to be. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So I'm trying to remind myself to be present, to be aware and grateful for the moments that I have to think these thoughts. I have a deep gratitude for that. I want to be willing to show up every day, despite the fact that I am so full of flaws, and that there is, my dog wants to get in, and that there is let me let her in. Hey, come in. He's a girl. Yes, I missed you too. And that you might also have something similar in your life, whether it's a hobby that you want to start, a painting that you want to make, a quilt, a new skill that scares you. So I really hope that you do something this weekend for yourself, for just you, something that feeds you, something that fills you, and something that requires you to do very little except to show up and do the best that you can, and realize that we all have flaws. We all have these sort of journeys that are mid-stride, and to allow yourself that, give yourself that grace, give yourself that permission to just do what you can do and be the best that you can be today. So I hope you have a really wonderful Friday, and a great weekend ahead, filled with maybe some moments out in nature where you find yourself in a way that you want to be the very most. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you got this far, thank you for listening. And I would really, really love to hear from you. If any of this resonates, why, and what are you working on in your life right now? I gain so much inspiration from others, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you. Bye.